Hello there, I'm Guildmaster Dan, and welcome to the Fourth Wall. For my guild members out there, some of you may be noticing that today I am wearing a tie. Why am I wearing a tie, you ask? No reason. It's a Space Invader tie, which I got in my loot crate and decided at random, hey, I'll try this on for a video. Let me know if you like it in the comments down below after you watch the video, and maybe I'll wear it in the future, I don't know. If you like ties, maybe I'll start wearing them. I don't know. In that same vein of just kind of randomly throwing stuff at you guys, I have a neat little Just a Brick for you today. I am a big fan of Shounen anime, Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball Z, watch those growing up. I enjoy, One Piece, Naruto, Fairy Tail. I love those shows. I know they get some criticism for repetitiveness from some people, but, when you like a theme and they continue to go with it, you go with it. Anyway, the reason why I bring that up is that in a lot of those shonen anime, you run into a specific type of story arc known as the tournament arc, where the heroes essentially get into a tournament, usually a fighting tournament, with other people of the same sort of caliber, if not higher caliber of skill levels from all across, their world, and you really get to see the world expand and everything. So today, I want to explore what that would look like and how you can do it in a role-playing game. Let's go. So Dan, why a tournament arc? What can I use that for in my campaign? Well, a tournament arc is good for getting some variety into your game. Most groups don't tend to see a tournament arc. They tend to go on adventures or go on missions, or explore a sandbox. A tournament arc gives you the opportunity to shake things up a bit, get things into a fun, competitive atmosphere, probably with high stakes, and also to kind of expand the world, because your players are going to be introduced to a lot of different NPCs, all the other contestants in this tournament, and just see how big the world is in comparison of what they do in the game. For example, if it's applied to Dungeons and Dragons and it's a tournament for adventuring groups, it's their chance to see lots of different types of adventuring groups, so different people with different motivations, and just kind of get exposed to the fact that they're not the only adventuring group in the world, that the world is bigger than them. And, if they tend to like characters, it gives you future adventures that you can build off of. Oh, well, maybe they run into this group down the line here, or they run into this problem that this group mentioned down the line here. It's a good way to build your world and introduce a lot of new characters and concepts, just by the sake of meeting different people who are in a similar profession to your players. Now, even though that sounds all good and great, there are a couple of difficulties with running a tournament arc. Number one, which should be the most apparent to GMs out there, all these different NPCs out there that they're going to meet, that puts a lot of tax on you as a GM, because these are all NPCs that you either have to stat out or at least come up with concepts for, especially if you're hoping to expand on the world some more. You got to put a lot of work into these character concepts at least. Well, there are ways to help with that, but we'll touch on that in a second. But mainly, you got to be prepared for the taxation of having to come up with a bunch of NPCs. And two, you also want to be careful not to get wrapped up in your NPCs. Now, for a lot of GMs out there, when you put a lot of hard work into an NPC, it's very tempting to get wrapped up in that NPC, and your players can wind up in a situation where you are playing the game for your NPC instead of running the game for the players. You want to avoid that at all costs. You got to remember when you're doing this that it is the PC's story, not your super cool NPC's storyline. Your NPCs are there to support the story of the players. Now, you can still do that and run it realistically. That's just something you have to keep in mind and kind of be wary of throughout the entire arc, because since you've put all this work in all these characters, the temptation will arrive. You will be tempted to get wrapped up in this story and maybe not realize it. So just be aware of that if you are going to run this story. As for what sort of characters come up with, there's lots of help you can do with that. If you're having trouble coming up with concepts, there are some main archetypes for a tournament arc that you can rely on that may help you come up with ideas. For example, in a tournament arc for an expanded storyline, a lot of archetypes you tend to see are the old rival, being the character or characters that your party has come up with or has come across in the past and has clashed with. If you don't have a specific character to have a reoccurrence here, you can maybe have an organization that they clashed with before, have representatives here. That's the old rival. You also want to have a new rival. This is someone that they meet at the tournament that seems to be a perfect foil to them at that time. Whether a lot of stories tend to make them similar to what the RPC or what the what the PCs are at that moment, or they could be the diametric opposite of what they are at the moment. The point is, this new rival is a foil for them that they haven't met before. This is a new foil that is introduced at the tournament that they may run into in the future now. You also want to have an ally that they meet. This doesn't necessarily have to be an ally from before or an organization from before. This could be an ally that they meet at the tournament, but you generally want them to meet an ally so they feel that this on a certain level at least is a friendly competition or a competition of honor. Something that it's someone that they can respect and maybe even try and help as the tournament goes on. You also typically want to have a cheater or a saboteur, some a-hole that's in the tournament to win and will win at any cost. And typically they'll get in the PC's way or at least the allies' way. It adds some additional it adds some additional stakes to the tournament itself in that they have to overcome something outside of the tournament. Lastly, there's also one last archetype that is called the tool of the conspiracy. And this is kind of going with the actual tourney advice, but this is essentially an enemy that is in the tournament that is pursuing a goal outside of just winning the tournament. It has to do with the whole things going on outside of the tournament at the same time, which brings me to tournament advice. When you're doing a tourney arc, what should you do with it? You absolutely should not just make up a bracket of different NPCs and players and then just go until there's a winner. Just have them fight each other. Not a good idea. Even though in the Shounen anime, more often than not, the tournaments are fighting tournaments, that is a terrible idea in role-playing games. Because exactly like Shounen are criticized, it will get repetitive. Just normal flat-out combats will get repetitive and slow, and they will stop having fun quickly. If you run a group that is all about combat, sure, you can make it a combat tournament if that's what your players really love, but even so, your goal with the tournament itself is that each round of the tournament should feel different and specifically unique from all the other rounds in the tournament. It's all about variety and having your players get a sense that there's lots of different aspects to the world that they haven't necessarily explored yet through these other characters and such. And you will get that through different challenges in each round and, different sorts of enemies, different sorts of opponents for them to fight or compete with. What I'd recommend is if you're going to have combat in it, have that not be the only part of the tournament. Maybe do combat and also challenge rounds as well. Maybe make it a point system instead of a bracket system, where there's just so many rounds of the tournament, and every day there's battle and challenge. That way you can kind of split up what the players are going to do in there, and then also you don't just get combat after combat after combat after combat. Today I'm fighting a group of orcs. Today I'm fighting a party of humans. Tomorrow I'm fighting a party of kobolds. You don't want it to get into that mindset. You want it to be in the combat itself. Things change up. You're fighting a varied group of enemies, and on top of that, there are special rules for each combat where, you're not allowed to use bladed weapons in this combat, or you're not allowed to use ranged weapons, or you have to fight over this lava pit, or the arena is moving the entire time, so you have to make agility checks throughout the entire battle. You want to change up those combats and make them feel different from every previous one. So take consideration of what type of battle or challenge they're going to be facing, and carefully look at who their opponents are going to be, and kind of measure it against your player's skills and what the challenge is to that round. Also in that, you also want to give each of your players a chance to shine. Maybe that could be done designing the challenges around the players, so that each one, can come up to a round and your party realize, oh, we need to use him for this round because he's best suited for that. Or these two people, come up with challenges with that in mind. You want to give each of your players a chance to shine, because this is their way to, be competitive and get into the fun environment of this tournament. Now, what I mentioned before with the tool of the conspiracy. When it comes to tournament arcs, it's not just the competition itself. Typically, there is something going on outside of the tournament that builds the tension and the stakes for the tournament. Specifically, most shonen have a conspiracy going on in the background. Typically, it's sometimes people running the tournament, or it's just people at the tournament seeking to use it to further something else. Let's use the D&D Adventures tournament, for example. Maybe one of the teams that enters is actually the servant of a secret necromancer who's living in the city that it's taking place in, and he actually funded the tournament to make sure that it went through this year, specifically because it's a fight-to-the-death tournament, and he's seeking to, at the end of the tournament, raise all the dead adventurers that died throughout the process of this tournament. So now he has all these particularly strong servants. That's an example of a conspiracy that's going on in the background. And he made sure that someone under his control entered the tournament to ensure that the tournament went on and things stayed lethal. You can combine that with the different archetypes, but you typically, it's fun to have that conspiracy going on in the background, because when your players discover that, now they have to weigh the saving the day aspect that's going on the side and the winning the tournament aspect that's going on in the forefront. And they kind of have to weigh those two as they go through. They don't necessarily have to choose. In fact, the tournament itself could be tied to that conspiracy that's going on more intimately than just somebody trying to use the tournament to their benefit. But it adds a sense of stakes and conflict to the players' motivations, and it's just generally fun. Now, when it comes to handling the matches in the tournament that your players aren't involved in, the way you want to handle that is to just not get too involved in that. Don't waste a lot of time on it. Remember, this is your PC storyline, and it is a role-playing game. Even though in an anime, you can have those extra episodes and stuff where you watch the combat between these other different characters and see how the tournament unfolds like that. In a role-playing game, that's you sitting there telling them a story without much involvement from them, and that can get boring. Unless they want that play-by-play, just summarize it. Just tell them generally what happens. If you want to get them involved with that match that's going on, have something happen outside of the tournament that can get them invested in what's going on. For example, the ally in that match has some high stakes in defeating the match. Maybe the person that they're facing in that match is the person who killed their wife or something, and they don't care about winning the tournament. They're just here to beat that guy. And have them discuss that with the players outside of the tournament at the tavern or something. You can create investment in those matches, but don't don't spend too much time on them. Give them play-by-play unless that's absolutely what they want, because otherwise you can end up boring your players that way, because there's not that much involvement there. Also, with handling those matches, you generally want to already know who's going to win, unless you're really going for running it in a realistic manner where not even you know who's going to win. If you're going to do that, figure out the outcomes before the game and then describe what happens, but just don't spend too much time on it. You want to summarize these other matches unless your players force you to do otherwise. One last bit of advice, taking a step back to characters. Don't be afraid to reuse characters from the past, either from previous adventures, especially with the couple of the archetypes, particularly the old rival and or the ally, or even characters you've used in other games that you already have statted out. This is a perfect opportunity to insert characters that you didn't really have a place for them before, because you're adding variety through a broadened horizon. Your players are becoming exposed to people they haven't met before, for the most part. So this is a perfect opportunity to insert characters, either from stories that you like from previous games, or from previous characters you didn't get to explore a lot, but you still liked. There's also lots of pre-made characters online and just general character concepts that you can use. Lots of resources you can use for that, and I'll make sure to put at least one down in the doobly-doo. If you're looking for some examples of the tournament arc and you like watching some anime, check out Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Fairy Tail. All three of those have, well, 3/4 of those have good tournament arcs. A couple of them do multiple tournament arcs, so there's lots of examples to use there. Particularly, Fairy Tail has a good example of what I talked about earlier with there's some battle and some challenge rounds. And they do it off of a point system, so that's a good example of that if that idea sounded interesting to you. But check those out if you need some inspiration. Otherwise, there might have been something I could have touched on that you thought of, or maybe you have run tournament arcs in your campaigns already. Feel free to make a comment below. Tell us about your tournament arcs if you ran one, or, if you disagreed with something I'm going to say, please comment below. Please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. I hope you guys are enjoying Guild Month. There are more videos to come, and I hope you continue to enjoy it. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Three, two, one, let's jam. Okay, so I don't know how that song goes, but it's Tank from somebody. I don't know, it's Cowboy Bebop theme.